Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. The House bill formerly known as HB 1557 was first filed in January. It prohibits the teaching of sexual orientation or gender identity in kindergarten through grade 3 in Florida. If this bill is implemented, could it eventually be extended through 5th grade and then high school? What does this bill mean? And is it constitutional? Let's get down to business. The business of being Black today is the Don't Say Gay bill. Constitutional or unconstitutional? Please welcome Florida House Representative and Congressional candidate Michelle Rayner. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Writer and LGBTQ plus advocate Spencer M. Collins. Hi, Spencer.
Hello, Tammi. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. The founder of Mass Exodus and host of the Keisha King Show. Keisha King is with us. Keisha, welcome back.
Hi, Tammi. Thank you for having me.
And the executive director and co-founder of Putting the Pieces Together, Donique Roll. Hi, Donique.
Hi, Tammi. Nice to meet you. I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome to the show. I always start the show with my traditional question, and it's, why should Black people care? So why should Black people care about this Don't Say Gay bill? We'll start with you, Michelle.
Well, there's many reasons that Black folks should care about this bill. And so just to level set for the audience, I actually have heard this bill. I voted down on this bill in the State House. I am actually the only LGBTQ woman in the state legislature. I was the first Black queer woman to ever hold any type of public office in the state of Florida. And so why Black folks should care about this bill is that we have a governor that is starting with the premise that LGBTQ folks' lives do not matter. And this particular bill is a part of a greater slate of bills that the Republicans right here in Florida have. We have the anti-CRT bill. We have a voter suppression bill. This is a greater slate of bills. And so we understand that in all marginalized groups, it is Black and brown folks that are always going to be the most harmed by these specific type of legislation. And so really, I think that we have to be concerned about it, because when we understand that an injustice is happening, with the LGBTQ people, like myself, or if it is also, when we're dealing with abortion rights, any of those things, that the train for Black folks is never going to be late. That train will be coming and it will be our turn. And so we need to make sure that we can stop, insidious bills like this in their tracks. And unfortunately, Tammi, it got signed on Monday.
It did indeed. Thank you for that reminder. Donique, why should Black people care about the Don't Say Gay bill?
Black people should absolutely care about this bill, because as a Black mother, I know that it empowers me to know what's going on with my child in public school. It reinforces my fundamental right as a parent to be engaged in my child's curriculum, to know what is going on. I, as a parent, absolutely should know if my child is being taught any form of sexuality, whether it's heterosexual or gay. I like to have a say in that. I think that's what the bill does. It empowers parents. It reinforces our fundamental right. It gives us an opportunity to have a say. And of course, I know many people will say, well, parents do have a say. Well, not in this day and age. It feels like we don't, because there's been many situations where parents have been stopped in trying to get records for our students, and also we're not informed of whether our child is having a mental breakdown or emotional breakdown or a physical breakdown. And it feels like our rights are being stripped away from us. So as a Black parent, we absolutely should care about the Parental Rights and Education Bill.
I like how you changed the name of the bill there now, Donique.
That's the name.
Why should Black people care?
Well, I think as emancipated slaves that we should be concerned whenever a bill comes across the table, because we're always going to be marginalized, because we only make up 15% of the population. And we're also talking about a country that took 200 tries before they even outlawed lynching of a Black man. And so if we keep allowing them to to stifle us with these bills, then we're always going to come in last. I mean, we've been coming in last forever since they brought us here. And so it's time for us to stand up. As a Black man and as a gay Black man, I think that this bill is ridiculous. First of all, because at that age, are we really talking about sexual identity in kindergarten through second and third grade? I don't think so. It's just another way for them to control us.
Emancipated slaves, huh? I never considered myself an emancipated slave, but it's an interesting concept, I guess, and something definitely to research. Keisha, why should Black people care about the Don't Say Gay bill?
Well, Tammy, we should care because our children are being presented with ideas of sexuality and gender ideologies at very early ages, and it's getting earlier as time goes on. And anyone who has spent time with a child, I'm a mother of two, children are not ready for these types of conversations. This bill is specific to kindergarten to third grade. I really question anyone who wants to keep me as a parent out of knowing if my child is bringing these ideas to class. I question why they would want to keep me out of that conversation. And also I question anyone who thinks that it's okay to present children with ideas of sexuality, heterosexual, homosexual, pans. I don't care what kind of sexuality it is. It is inappropriate for children. And so we should care as Black people, as all people, because it's the well-being of the next generation to make sure that they are not sexualized. That's why we should care.
Whenever I hear a story of someone in the LGBTQIA community, and particularly the gay community, I always hear them say, I always knew. I always felt that something was different about me. I knew at an early age that there was something about me that was different from the rest of the people. So does that mean that there is a sense of your sexuality at an early age, like kindergarten through third grade? And does that merit us talking about it, Michelle?
Well, first off, I want to level set. I want to make sure that this is very clear about what the bill says, because I have read the bill. I actually heard the bill. I'm in the legislature where this bill was being heard. First off, this bill is not just talking about sexual orientation and gender identity, because when I offered the amendment to say that we would outlaw talking of any human sexuality, period, that amendment was not accepted by the Republicans. That amendment was not accepted. So that already lets me know why that amendment wasn't accepted. And in fact, the bill sponsors in both chambers said that, guess what? That doesn't go to the intent of the bill. If we're concerned about children learning about sexual things, which I absolutely agree with the other two panelists, I think that those conversations are best left for parents. It would cover the gamut of all sexuality, not just LGBTQ folks. It would talk about heterosexuality, pansexuality, anything else. But when we offered that amendment was not accepted.
So you're saying that an amendment was offered to include heterosexuality?
Correct.
And they were like, no, we're not going to not say heterosexual. We're just going to not say gay.
Correct. It literally, the wording of the amendment was to include all human sexuality. That was the amendment that I offered and that Senator Brandes offered in the Senate. So I want to be very clear when we're having this conversation that we're understanding that the issue about this bill is the intent and the calling out of one specific group of folks. It's not about, no one thinks that we should be having conversations about sexuality with kindergartners. What we're talking about, what does that mean? The bill is vague. And when we're thinking about even, what does classroom instruction look like? I don't even think we need to be talking to children about, like, what do you feel like you are? But what if little Johnny?
I'm not exactly sure if that conversation has ever even come up in school, like,
and we were not given
sexuality. So, Danique, do you agree with Michelle on this in terms of including all sexuality into that bill?
Well, I'm a high school teacher. I teach in public school, and I know that Florida standards doesn't allow any talk of sexuality at all. So I understand what you mean about the intent, but I know what's on the bill. I've too read the bill. And it does not say anything about you should talk about gay identity. It's strictly for curriculum that you're not supposed to have any sexuality mentioned in the curriculum. And in our Florida standards now, we don't. Someone mentioned earlier that we don't talk to our children K-3 about sex in class. Of course we don't. However, some teachers have been caught doing so. I'm not saying here in Florida, but I know other teachers as well because I've heard them. But our standards right now, our curriculum does not talk about sexuality. So I don't honestly see what the fuss is about. So if it doesn't talk about sexuality, then what is the problem?
But Keisha, it is a sexuality bill. It's designed to limit the talk of sexuality in kindergarten through third grade.
Specifically
K through 3.
Specifically gay sexuality.
It doesn't say that.
It does not say that.
Says sexual orientation or gender identity. What does that mean? That is LGBTQ.
If you read it, that is the language that it uses, and it unfairly targets us. And this is what teaches our kids self-hate. This is why, as a 51-year-old Black man, I didn't learn to love myself until I was 40 years old. Because everywhere that I went, I was taught that my sexuality was an issue and that it was a problem and that it was wrong. And now we're doing this and having conversations or trying to stop.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back on Business of Being Black. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Let's get down to business. The business of being Black today is the Don't Say Gay bill that was just passed in Florida by Governor Ron DeSantis. Please welcome to the show. Florida House Representative and Congressional candidate Michelle Rayner, writer and LGBTQ plus advocate Spencer M. Collins IV, the founder of Mass Exodus and host of the Keisha King Show, Keisha King, and the executive director and co-founder of Putting the Pieces Together, Donique Roll. Keisha, before we left, we were talking about how there was an amendment to this bill that included not talking about heterosexuality either, and just saying all sexuality as opposed to just the sexuality of gay. So how do you feel about the inclusion of not talking about sexuality at all?
I think it sounds redundant. That's probably why it wasn't accepted, because it does not include a specific type of sexuality in any version of the bill. In no version that I saw named a specific type of sexuality. And so adding an amendment that says all is redundant. It's already there because it doesn't name a type of sexuality in the bill. And that's why it's bizarre that people walk around calling it the Don't Say Gay bill, because it's not naming a type of sexuality. And, unfortunately, we do live in a society where some people do believe that young children should be talked to about sex, whatever kind of sex. And that is just inappropriate. I don't know. I know it's hard to believe because, we like to assume that people have the best intentions, but there are people who believe that little children should be talked to about sex. I have read papers from individuals who say that there should be that children don't have a natural innocence. There is a mindset of people that I can't say it enough. They do believe that little children should be talked to about sex. This is a reality that we have to face. And it is happening in public school. It's happening in many different places, but it's certainly happening in schools. And parents have the right to know what is being talked about, especially when it comes to something like that. To a 5-year-old, yes, I'm gonna need to know that. Absolutely.
Michelle, you say that the bill works exclusively against the gay community because that is the literal language that is within the bill. Explain.
So I'm actually going to read the language of the bill because reading is fundamental. And it says classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. So I want to be very clear.
Well, you read that, and when you read it, I tend to agree with Keisha and Donique. There's nothing in there that specifies being gay.
So what is sexual orientation? Sexual
orientation is heterosexual, gay, pansexual. It's all of the above.
And so when we offered the amendment, and this amendment was actually offered by a Republican, so I also want to be very clear, Republican in the other chamber, he said, listen, it seems like, and from what the bill sponsor had said, because the bill sponsor also talked about their intent and said the quiet part out loud, that they do not want to be teaching of any trans identities or LGBTQ identities, that when the Republican sponsor of the amendment said, hey, listen, why don't we just include it all? It runs the gamut and included that other language, sexual orientation and gender identity in his amendment. He said, the bill sponsor said no, because that's not the intent. I don't want this to be specifically, my daughter wants to be a boy bill. That is what the bill sponsor has said. So if we were really concerned about parents not knowing, which one they do know, parents can meet with teachers, they can go into PTAs, they can do all of things. No, and it's beyond me that we're thinking that we're wanting to ban parents. That's not the intent of this bill. That is
interesting that you two ladies, Donique and Keisha, think that it has something to do with not allowing parents to know what's being taught in schools. I don't think that's the intent of the bill. I think the schools always let the parents know, or they should. I'm sure there are cases where they don't, but they definitely should. I remember this moment so well when I was in elementary school. I went to school and I was crying all day. I was just crying all day. And my grandmother was a school teacher, so they took me to her classroom and I wouldn't tell her what was wrong. And then they took me somewhere else and I wouldn't tell them what was wrong. But when they took me to my first grade teacher, because at that time I was in the third grade, when they took me back to my first grade teacher, Miss Wiley, who was a Black woman, I told her what was wrong. I felt comfortable with her. I felt like sharing that information with her. So I say that to say that sometimes teachers are the best source to get information from children that parents cannot get, Keisha.
That may be. And I remember my first grade teacher too. And I'm not saying that all teachers have some malicious intent or anything like that. But the problem is, and this is happening, we have right here in Duval County documents that literally instruct teachers and outside organizations on how to get students to go around parents. This is a real thing. January Littlejohn, I think she spoke at the bill signing that Representative Rayner was at about her child being transitioned behind her back. And this was an involved parent. She was a member of the PTA. She was, friendly with the guidance counselors. They never spoke to her about her child going through this life-changing process. This is happening.
That's interesting. That sounds like a very unique story, though, I must say. Spencer, I see you shaking your head.
I mean, there's so many thoughts running through my head, and I have to apologize ahead of time because, as you know, I'm dealing with some personal stuff. So my words will probably be a little more jumbled because it's harder to concentrate. But one of the biggest problems that I have with the bill is that if a child, first of all, let me say, I wasn't even thinking about my sexuality when I was that age. I was thinking about playing with cars and trucks and toys and learning my ABCs. That's the kind of stuff I was concerned with. We're in a different age and time. The kids talk about things differently than what we used to.
And the access of the internet as well.
Yes. And the problem with this bill is if a child does decide to identify as trans, or if they're male and identify as female, or female and identify as male, then that's when the conversation gets ceased. It doesn't, if they say that they're heterosexual, then it's not going to be a problem. And that's why it's specifically geared to silencing the LGBTQI community, because that's what they're really trying to do.
Donique, some celebrities have made the transition from their children pretty public, and they've been supporters and spoke out about it. Obviously, Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union, but also Angelina Jolie, and I believe Scarlett Johansson as well. So a few celebrities have definitely talked about that. So here's my question when it comes to just the general public, right? Donique, what happens if there's a parent who is allowing their child to transition from a little girl to a little boy, and then that little child is in the classroom? How should the school address that, or should the school not address it at all?
Well, there have been situations in my county where there was a real incident where someone was transgendered, and the parent told the teachers and administrators that we need to now call her by him. And so that was a discussion with the principal and with the teachers. And so now in that particular case, the teachers were instructed to call the child by their name, and it was fine. So many teachers did that. I've also had students in my classroom that are transgendered. It is nothing to call them by the name that they give us, because I would allow any student, if they tell me to call them a nickname, or can you call me this name, miss, I would do it. It's no problem. And so I don't think that would be an issue in the classroom.
Keisha, how would you address that if your children were going to school and then Bobby becomes Barbara now?
I think the issue is when the parents are not being alerted and aware of when this is happening. That is the problem. And that is why the bill is called Parental Rights in Education, because this has been happening where parents are not being aware.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack, where the business of being Black today is the Don't Say Gay bill. Keisha, you got a little cut off there before we went to break, so I want to allow you to complete your thought, please. I was talking about your child. If your child is in school and little Bobby becomes little Barbara, how should the school address that?
I think
if they're not, especially if they're not allowed to address it.
Well, it's in the curriculum, number one, of it being like within the curriculum and keeping parents out of the conversation. That is the main undergirding of the bill. It's that these things were happening. The reason why the bill exists is because these things were happening to children and parents did not know about it. So it's not that we understand, that times are changing and people are, this is happening. We see, the GSA, the clubs are there. It's in the schools. I mean, so it's not like a secret. But when this is affecting your child and you don't know, and you want to provide, as a mother, I want to be able to provide support, not only when they're in class. I need to know what's going on so I can provide support to my child at home. But if they're only getting this, if this is only being talked about in school, but then when they're coming home, they're, it's like you have no idea of what's going on. We would not accept that in any other.
So do you suggest that if a child in school were transitioning, the school should contact you to let you know?
Yes, I would want my children's teacher, administration, guidance counselors to let me know, because you might spend 8 hours with my child or 7 hours or whatever, but I am still the steward over my child. And as a believer, we are called to be good stewards over our children. And at the end of the day, the onus is on me as a parent to know what is going on, to provide the best well-being for my child. Spencer, and that extends outside of school hours.
Spencer, do you think the Don't Say Gay bill will be a setback for the LGBTQ community?
I absolutely do, because again, it doesn't allow us to have the conversations. Now, first, let me say I'm a parent too. My son is 18 years old, so he's not in kindergarten. I don't even know what that feels like anymore. It's been too long. But I think we all want the same thing when it comes to our kids. We always talk about the mom and what the mom wants. I very seldomly hear about what the dad wants, but we're a part of the conversation too. And for me and my child, I just want my child to be happy. And if they are transitioning, or if that is something that they're thinking about, I think it should be a conversation that's had in the classroom after, of course, they make sure that it's okay with all of the parents. Nobody wants to get sideswiped by it. So I hope that that's not what people are hearing us say when we oppose the Don't Say Gay bill. The problem with it is the self-hatred that it teaches your child, that they can't talk about who they are openly without having permission to do so, when, like I said, a heterosexual child does not have to go through the same thing. That is the big problem. It already lets you know that you are different. And because of that difference, you're going to be treated another way outside of the norm. It's a problem.
Michelle, in 1993, Bill Clinton signed a policy into law known as the Don't Ask, Don't Tell bill, which stated that military applicants were not to be asked about their sexual orientation. This bill sounds a lot like that. And we have to say that bill was reversed, I believe, by President Barack Obama, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was.
So are we going back in time as opposed to progressing and moving forward?
You know, Tammi, it feels like that. And I would also say that this bill has some unintended consequences as well. It's not just about children who may identify as LGBTQ, but we're also talking about children who may have two moms or two dads. And when we're talking about what classroom instruction is, I mean, what does that mean? You know, that language is vague in the bill. The language is vague when it comes to age appropriate. And it does feel like we're going back in time, because here's the deal. I came to Tallahassee to deal with housing insecurity. I came to Tallahassee to deal with food insecurity. I came to Tallahassee to deal with some of the most pressing issues that we have in our state. And yet and still the Republicans, and specifically Ron DeSantis, are playing culture wars. And they're doing it on the backs of Black folks. They're doing it on the backs of LGBTQ folks. They're doing it on the backs of women and immigrants. Once again, as I've mentioned, this is a slate of bills. This is not just one bill. This is a slate of bills that have been introduced by Republican leadership, by Ron DeSantis, in order to, you know, talk to the most extreme part of his base. And what he's doing is trying to set us back, and it's trying to divide. And we're having a conversation where I think all of us who are, you know, thinking people agree that parents should be involved. You know, I'm not a parent yet, but I have raised my nephew, and I was involved in every part of his education. I knew what was going on. I'm not saying that shouldn't be happening, but what I am saying is that we can't have this type of legislation, and especially when a lot of this language is already in statute, in order to do it just so we can make sure folks can get reelected. And that's the problem that I have with it.
Keisha and Danique, according to equalitytexas.org, there were laws enacted in the 1990s known as the No Promo Homo laws. Those laws read that educational programs must state that the homosexual conduct is not an acceptable lifestyle and is a criminal offense. At least 4 states still have such laws on the books: Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. So what are your thoughts about the No Promo Homo laws, Danique?
I mean, that's a terrible bill, and it absolutely shouldn't happen. But I think that the Parental Rights and Education bill is completely different. I don't think that is targeting gay people. The curriculum in Florida simply does not allow for any sexual content in our curriculum, period. So whether it's hetero or whether it's gay or transgender, it's just not happening. And so I think that this is a security measure for parents to assure that we're going to continue with doing business as usual, having our typical Florida standard curriculum. We know that some states have been having sexual orientation and sexual gender identity and anything to do with sexuality, whether it's hetero or gay, within their curriculum. And Ron DeSantis is simply trying to protect our children to make sure that that is not happening in the state of Florida. And I completely agree with that.
As a teacher, I want to ask you, yes, go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry, but if the language, Johnny, said, the language is already in the statutes not to talk about any sexuality. So why would we need a redundant bill? If the language is already in there, this is the premise that you said, the language is already in there. So then this bill would be redundant. Why would we need a redundant bill if the language is already in there, if children are already protected, but for that we are, trying to point out and single out one group of people? If that's the argument, I don't know why the language would need to be in there if it's already in the statute.
But just like Keisha said, some of this is already happening in different classrooms, and she has plenty of documentations to vouch for that. And I've actually seen it. I don't know if this is from what I've seen. I haven't seen any Florida teachers, but I have seen teachers from other states that are imposing sexuality in their curriculum. And Ron DeSantis is simply just trying to protect our children and prevent it from not happening. Again, we don't talk about that in the classroom. So I honestly don't see what the problem is, because it's not happening in the classrooms, and we need to make sure that it continues that way.
Danique, I do have to say, if we're not talking about it in the classroom already, if the curriculum doesn't allow for it already, as a school teacher, do you believe that this bill is necessary at all? It definitely now sounds like it's a political move.
Honestly, in the beginning, when I first read the bill, I thought, why is this happening? It's not necessary. We don't talk about it in the curriculum. But then I saw so many parents and teachers was just adamant about talking about sexuality in the curriculum. So to me, it's necessary, because it seems like this is where it's going to go. Because I've seen so many teachers talk about why they should talk about sexuality in K through 3, and I don't understand why. And to me, this is a protection so that it won't happen. We need to protect our children. I think that this bill is rightly doing so.
I feel like we're creating a problem where there is no problem, though.
If we're not Spencer, we're going to come right back from commercial and find out why we're creating a problem where there is no problem on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. We'll be right back, y'all. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Spencer, you said if the bill's not necessary, why make it necessary? Why create a problem where there is no problem?
Yeah, that's been my question the whole time. If these conversations are not happening, and we clearly know that they are now, based on some of the information that people have collected and some of the evidence, but it's still, it is so clear that they don't want you to talk about your sexuality if you're a part of the LGBTQI population. Otherwise, why even make the bill? With Florida, it's always something. And I do believe that he's using this as a ploy so that he can get back into office. Otherwise, why is it even necessary? If somebody can tell me that, because the bottom line is, as parents, all of us, just like I said, we just want to make sure that anything that's going out to our kids, we have control over it. I'm not saying that I don't want us to have control, but what I don't want is for them to shame our community. And that's what this bill does. That's why they're calling it the Don't Say Gay bill.
The governor's spokesperson called LGBTQ folks and opponents of this bill pedophiles and groomers.
Yes.
And when we asked the governor, because I was in the Capitol when this happened, when we asked the governor to hold her accountable, he never said anything. This language has been used by the GOP, calling people who are LGBTQ folks or who are opponents of this bill pedophiles and groomers, which is libelous language, which is insidious, and also which is the oldest trope in the book. So they're saying the quiet part out loud. And it's incredulous to me, because I understand when I asked for examples from the bill sponsor as to what is happening in the classroom, I asked for that throughout the 60-day session. I got none. I got one thing that happened in Leon County. One. If this is something that they have both said, they have parents that come and talk to them about it. Where were the parents? They didn't come to one parent came to committee. So once again, I'm not talking about what I think I know. I'm talking about what I experienced in this legislative session, having relationships with these bill sponsors, to having them say the quiet part out loud, not only to me directly, but also on the House floor.
Interesting.
I don't know when we started thinking that pedophiles and groomers were only directed towards LGBTQ. there
That is
are
what the governor's
Only
spokesperson
when they
said.
direct it towards
But
us.
it
That's
isn't.
when we think
well,
it. They direct it
true.
to us in a lot of conversations.
That is what
pedophiles,
she said.
groomers exist. It could be men
Well,
attracted
I'm not a
to little
pedophile,
girls,
nor am I a groomer because
women
I'm
attracted to little boys.
LGBTQ.
It could be
Nor
men
is a
on men, women on women. Pedophiles and groomers have no respect of gender. So
You're absolutely right.
that
It's
is,
not limited
You're right.
to
Keisha,
LGBTQ.
I want to put this in a practical term because I know you have children. If a girl has a crush on another girl in elementary school and she happens to express it in class, how should the teacher handle that situation? Because, let's face it, if a boy has a crush on a girl in elementary school, should they be prohibited from expressing themselves?
They should treat it should be treated equally. There was another situation here in Florida where an 8-year-old little girl who was being sexually assaulted by a boy, the administration knew, the teacher knew, the principals knew. Guess who didn't know? The parents. They only started to realize that something was going on with their baby when she started wetting the bed and she was regressing in her development, that they went to the school and said, what is going on with my child? Come to find out, she was being sexually assaulted by another 8-year-old child. And he was not only assaulting her, but he was assaulting other kids too. This is not, parents are rightfully upset and trying to bring awareness to something that is happening in our communities. So
it actually sounds like what I'm hearing now is an argument to discuss sexuality and sex in schools, to be honest here.
Having parents be involved and know what is going on with their children, because I don't know about you guys, but some of us have had, the funny uncle or the funny, somebody who like to get a little handsy and touchy. If your child is in school and expressing something that is going on and you do not let your parents know, it may not even be the teacher. Maybe it is not, maybe it's not in the administration, but the teacher is seeing it and they do not alert the parents.
So Michelle,
to let them know what is going on. That is a problem.
Based on what Keisha's saying, Michelle, it does sound like we need a bill, but it sounds like we need a bill that says, please tell the parents. We need the please tell the parents
Parental
bill.
rights and
Where
education.
is that bill?
Here's the deal.
We have that bill.
Here's the deal.
It's called the Parental Rights and Education Bill.
Here's the deal. The parental rights and education, much of this bill, besides the sexual orientation and gender identity, is already in statute. Donique has already admitted that it's in statute. What we're having is we have bad actors who do not tell parents what they need to be told. And here's the thing. If I heard that someone was abusing my child and I didn't know, listen, there would be smoke in the city. Period. I don't care where it is, there will be smoke in the city. Listen, I am an attorney by trade. The school district would be sued and whoever else had to be involved. But here's the deal. I agree that parents should know. But what I'm hearing and what even has the bill sponsor has indicated, that we have these one-off situations, these situations that's not, occurring all the time, and that we're building statutes and bills around it. So once again, I go back to what I do know is that I believe that this is really a ploy for Governor Ron DeSantis, for him to be able to run for president so he can talk to the most extreme part of his base and get in. And then what he's telling parents is, I'm the only one that's protecting you. That's nuts. Like
protecting you from gay people.
Correct.
Right.
But parents, but you see that parents, it's already in statute. True, but a lot of this is not happening. I work in a special needs community, and I can tell you parents are clueless, not by choice. They're not given this information for their child, and they have every right to know.
Why do we need to do it again?
Because it's not happening, and this bill reinforces it.
No, that's not how the law works. The law works like this. There's a statutory portion and then there's an enforcement portion. This bill is not an enforcement portion. This bill is a redundant bill that singles out a group of people. If this is happening, there are causes of action in the statute to make sure that make sure that bad actors are held accountable. So once again, you've already admitted that it's in statute. So there needs to be an enforcement piece. And unfortunately, this bill does not talk about the enforcement. The enforcement piece is already in statute. So once again, this bill, you're proving my point. This bill is only to really single out and discriminate against LGBTQ people and families.
No,
So,
I disagree.
The language is
Donique,
too
Donique,
vague.
I
It
do want
needs
to
to be a
ask you
little more
this.
specific.
I'd like to revisit something that you said earlier, Donique. You said initially you thought the bill was a bit redundant and unnecessary. And then when you read into it and looked at some cases, you thought, oh, yeah, this bill is very necessary. So what was it specifically that sparked your different thought process?
Mainly when I were hearing from other teachers about how they needed to talk about sexual identity and sexual orientation from K through 3. Like I said, I didn't think it was necessary in the beginning because I'm like, we don't, it's not in our curriculum, so why do it? But when I saw other teachers advocating for it to be in our curriculum, then I said, okay, this is a problem. We do need some type of reinforcement. We need a bill to stop this, to prevent whatever they are trying to do. And I know that you're saying that is geared to LGBTQ. This is sexuality in general. I don't want my son to be taught sexuality at all from 5 to 7. And also there shouldn't be conversations about, well, is there conversations from a kid that's 5 and 7 that is talking about identity and is talking about gender and is talking about sexuality? Is that even happening? Because I know, I'm sorry, Spencer, you mentioned that what if they have these conversations, but are they really having these conversations at 5 that teachers should be worried about?
In the beginning of this talk, that's one of the things that I said, like, are we really having these conversations? That's why I said, is this bill even needed? Are we having these kind of conversations in the classroom?
You said that you also said they should be, and
I
that some of them are.
What I said is where we are in the world, we do have to be realistic. There are kids now who are saying that they identify sexually as whatever.
But at 6, though, like 5 and 7?
Some are. Like we said in the earlier part of the conversation, some people are saying that
we're going to finish the second part of the conversation when we return. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. In the business of being Black today, the Don't Say Gay bill. So I just love a great debate. So why not kick it off with a lightning round? Okay, Keisha, I just want to know, are you for or against this new bill in Florida that Governor Ron DeSantis has passed?
I am for it. I am here for it all the way.
And Donique, what about you and why? For or against?
I am 100% here for the Parental Rights and Education bill because it reinforces my right as a parent and it protects our children.
Spencer, for or against the Don't Say Gay bill, the Parental Rights bill?
I'm against it. It needs to be amended. The language is too vague. The only way that I would be for it if it actually was like the parents, that would be something else. But this is not that. This is an attack on my community, and I take it personally. And because of that, I'm against it.
Michelle.
Well, I voted it down on the House floor, and I will vote it down again. This bill is nothing but a distraction and red meat to a far right base. And we're not dealing with the real issues here in Florida. So no, I'm against it.
Keisha, please talk about the mission behind the mass exodus movement and how your podcast, The Keisha King Show, came about.
Yeah, so the mass exodus movement is to get children into better learning environments so they can be safe and so they can actually learn when they are in class and not talk about all of these social issues. But where we are in America's education system, we need help, and these kids need to know math, science, reading, language arts, and not have all of this other stuff that comes along with it. Just let's teach the kids. Let's just get back to teaching. And the Keisha King Show, you can find it on all of your, wherever you get your podcast. And also just go to KeishaKing.com and follow me on YouTube.
Donique, please, putting the pieces together.
Well, putting the pieces together is my baby. It is a support group for parents of children with special needs, specifically autism. It started because my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. And that really inspired a passion of mine, and saw that I was called to do this. I was called to help parents navigate their way through autism with resources, support, and love. And you can find me at ptpt-orlando.net. We meet every first Saturday of every month in Orlando. And again, we just offer support for families with children with special needs.
Spencer, you have a lot going on. Congratulations, first off, on your award. Please tell us about that. But I also know that you've just produced a film, Velvet Jesus, I believe,
Yes.
that has been awarded as well. So talk about it.
Yes, thank you so much, Tammy. So Velvet Jesus is a film that we just finished up. It's actually doing the film circuit, the film festival circuit right now. We're out there winning awards, but the conversation is really important because it's a little boy who goes back to confront the man who molested him years ago. And we don't really talk about that in our community, but it's something that we need to open the floor to discuss, and this movie helps us do that. So thank you for bringing that up. And then the Bayhard Rustin Award. If the Don't Say Gay bill was around, there wouldn't have been a Bayhard Rustin, you know. And so I'm honored to be taking this award because, of course, he was one of the civil rights activists who was responsible for putting together the march on DC. And so to be getting the honor in his name is, man, I'm still blown away by it. I can't believe it. But I think that we need to keep conversations going. I'm so glad that we had this conversation and that you facilitated it and we had an opportunity to talk. I often think that most of the time we're all saying the same thing, but in different ways. I know that we, as parents, we want to make sure that our children are protected and we know what it is that they're learning. And so I didn't get on here to disagree. I just came on to offer a different perspective.
Well, you know, 2 + 2 is 4, but 3 + 1 is 4 too. So,
right.
Michelle, listen, tell us about your campaign. Florida's 13th Congressional District. You're out there representing and writing laws and passing laws and then, you know, putting some of them down. You're doing the hard work, sis.
Well, yes. So thank you. So as mentioned, I am a sitting state representative, but I am running for Congress right here in my hometown of St. Petersburg. I started my career as a civil rights attorney. I worked with Ben Crump and really excited about building people power, coalitions, making sure that the people's voices are heard, even people who I may not agree with. That's the beauty of America. We can have so many different opinions and still be able to do the things that we need to do. And so I'm really excited about what we're building. You can go to michelleforflorida.com. Michelle has one L and for Florida is spelled out. And I welcome any dialogue. I thank you so much, Tammy, for this conversation, because I think it's needed. I think that in our community, we need to start having these tough, difficult conversations because it affects all of us.
It definitely affects all of us. Donique, I'd like to ask you a question before we get out of here. Because you are an educator, can educators who are experienced in dealing with the LGBTQ plus issues help navigate working with families in ways that reduce the challenges faced by the community itself, especially the youth?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. I'm sorry, I missed it.
Can educators who are experienced in dealing with the LGBTQ plus issues help parents and families and the youth with these challenges that they face?
Yes, absolutely. As long as the parents and teachers are working together, I don't see why it would be any problem. Parents and we, as teachers, we love our students. We want the best for them. We want them to have a full life. We want them to live their best life. We want them to be their authentic self. But we also want to work with parents to help them to be that too.
Keisha,
as long as we're working together, it won't be a problem.
Do you believe that the teachers, that educators can help move the challenges that the LGBTQ community face?
Yes, as long as it's in good faith, you know, as long as you are, like Donique said, as long as you are working alongside their parents and realizing that parents have first say and last look. You know, we know what's best for our own children. And so as long as it's a in tandem support, as long as we're working together, I think that we can do great things.
Mm-hmm.
Supporters of this bill say that the bill will not ban people from talking casually about the LGBTQ topics in schools. However, the bill gives parents the ability to sue the school district, of course, if they feel that the bill is not being followed. So where do we draw the line at this casual conversation, Michelle, Representative?
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole argument on the House floor. When we're talking about what is classroom instruction, there was no example given when I asked the question about when it says K-3 or age appropriate, the bill sponsor said and I said, well, or and are two different words. I think that this bill is vague purposefully to cause a legal challenge. And as of today, there actually has been a lawsuit that's filed since the bill was signed. Wow. And so, and what is classroom instruction? Does it mean when little Sally comes in and talks about her two moms and, another kid in the classroom says, well, why does Sally have two moms? I have a mom and a dad. What is the teacher supposed to do then? It's very vague, and we're not giving our teachers guidance in that. And so, and once again, I think it's the purpose of the bill, to be quite honest.
In one word, everyone, how can we provide guidance when it comes to the LGBTQ community in schools? How can we provide the guidance in one word? Danique.
Togetherness.
Keisha.
Parents.
Michelle.
Kindness.
Spencer.
Transparency.
There it is. Thank you for being on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Hollywood Unlocked is next with Jason Lee. See y'all.